Uniform Show, episode 18. We're going to finish up the NFL season with the playoffs and then get into the NBA. Let's start off with this playoff game. It was one of the coldest playoff games in NFL history between the Dolphins and the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City, Arrowhead. And a very unusual thing happened to Patrick Mahomes in this game.
Heading for the end zone, he gets hit by the defender, and it's so cold, his helmet cracks.
And you're our helmet expert, so what are your thoughts on this particular helmet being cracked?
Again, we've been saying just how much of a difference these new helmets make. I'm sure they do to plenty of an extent, but I don't ever remember seeing a helmet when we were growing up in the 90s breaking like this. And
I can't honestly remember any helmet all these years since that time breaking like this.
Yeah.
And the fact that this is one of these newer helmets, and it happened to that, I know also you take into consideration it was an extremely cold game, but it makes you think, how effective are these new helmets if something like this is happening?
Yeah, he got hit right in the Dippin' Dots area, as we like to call it. Some other people call it the rash area of the V-Cheese helmet, but it's a weak point, and these cold conditions, it was made even more noticeable by breaking in that spot.
And of course, this helmet could not be repaired on the spot, so they had to get Mahomes a new helmet in the game. He went on to do his regular business at quarterback and was unaffected by this, but I just can't remember seeing anything like this happen, but especially in a playoff game. So there were some very good things that came about in these playoffs. There will be some bad things, but we had several classic traditional matchups between playoff legacy rivals.
Right.
If you want to say it that way. And we had that with the Packers and the Cowboys, who at that point had tied the all-time playoff record of games between two teams because of their long history and all their success. And it was great having them play each other once again from a uniform standpoint. It was wonderful that the Cowboys were humiliated. The Packers put up 48 points on them. It was very embarrassing. But both teams didn't show up when it came to play on the field, but both teams showed up with their uniforms.
Right, this is one of the best uniform matchups in all of NFL history, as we believe, and many others do too, but it goes all the way back, of course, to the Ice Bowl and far-reaching past games of significance.
Yeah, we're talking about the mid-'60s when these teams were playing each other in not exactly the same uniforms, but very close.
Right.
Primarily the socks are the major difference, but from really the socks up, for the most part, we're talking about the same uniform for all these years.
And the picture illustrates it perfectly, especially on the Cowboys side. You got 3 different type of sock configurations here, and Michael Parsons is the only one that has it even close to right. All blue, all white, And then Micah Parsons with blue on white, which is correct.
Yeah, I was commenting back and forth with someone about Micah Parsons' performance, that he hasn't particularly shown up in the playoffs for these first couple of years of his career with the Cowboys, and that's another factor into why they haven't been so successful. I primarily put it on Dak Prescott, of course, but he sure knows how to wear the socks, right? He is so consistent about that, and I have to applaud him when it comes to wearing the uniform and the socks. Not so much of the helmet, but when it comes specifically to the socks, he gets it right every game.
Yeah.
For someone who's so young in the league, and for someone who is one of the best defensive players in football, really give him his credit for letting his play speak for itself and not making himself stand out, at least with the socks. Again, we can talk about the helmet another time. But it is disappointing to see, though, the other players go with the two other extremes here.
Yeah.
You have Parsons getting it right, and then you have the all blue and really the all white look. My other comment here, though, I have to say this every time we're inside, it's disappointing that we didn't get to see the sunlight. It's disappointing we didn't get to see any light or sunlight, natural light on the field. All you have is stadium lights for an afternoon game in Dallas. Some of the best matchups I can remember with uniforms are those noon kickoffs in Green Bay, cold games with the Cowboys and Packers. I can remember a specific game. It was a 10 a.m. kick for us, and of course Matt and Summerall were doing it on Fox, and those uniforms both just shined on the field. As the sunlight shined on them, they were as good as it gets for both of them, being in the sunlight in that early afternoon kickoff in Green Bay.
Right, these uniforms look so much better outside or in the natural light, and even in Dallas in the 1990s and going farther back, having natural light coming in was so much better visual. Now it just looks like a dark dome, as we've said many times on other episodes before.
But even with that, I still enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah.
Having these two, because if you're going to be inside, and this is close to the best uniform matchup you can have. What would we take over this? Packers and Raiders? With the Packers wearing home and the Raiders wearing road.
Yeah.
That's one of the only ones that comes to mind that I would say is better than this. And you have the blue, it's the green and the yellow. This is what uniforms should be, and this is why you don't change uniforms like this.
Right.
So that was the wild card round. And I have to include this because this really says it all from a Cowboys perspective. And I didn't want to include Dak Prescott. Somehow Dak Prescott almost finds his way into every uniform show for the wrong reasons. But here you have it in Dallas. He's got the stocking, the white stocking underneath the white sock, and then you see, which I have to criticize, the field not being natural grass, it's the turf and all the balls flying up in the air.
Yeah, rubber ball. But yeah, this year was the year of all white socks with the white transparent stocking in the middle at the knee for Dak Prescott. Again, we said the only exception was the turnback Thanksgiving uniform, which we gave him an A for wearing so well there. But the whole rest of the year was this, and it's just a huge downgrade from past Cowboy uniforms, and it's a huge downgrade for what he used to wear, where he used to wear the blue at the knee at least.
Yeah, and with as superstitious as players are, and considering this year ended up in a failure, and after all the hype in Dallas, and everyone said, well, with Dak taking his game up to another level, and the here we go, and all that went on during the season, they didn't get as far as they did even in 22. They got to the divisional round and at least won a game, and then they get smoked. The game wasn't as close as the score would indicate in the wild card round at home. Maybe it's time to wear those blue socks again. Okay, now we go to the Lions. And I'm only showing and featuring pictures from one of the Lions' home games, but the Lions had this playoff drought all these years, about 30 years since they hosted a home playoff game. I had never seen a home playoff game for the Lions. Not the Silver Dome. This was the first home playoff game we ever saw this year. We're featuring the second one here. But with the Rams and Lions was the first game. That was a wild card game. And the Lions won. And then they hosted a divisional round game against the Buccaneers. And they decided to wear the same combination both times.
Yeah, based on this year's choices, this is what we predicted they would wear.
Well, you did. You were right on that. You called this.
Yeah.
I didn't. I was hopeful they wouldn't, but you did call it.
Yeah. Blue on blue. Somehow they lost the silver pants in the wash again. They wore them 2 times the whole year, and that was it. And it's just too much blue. And the blue on blue is way better. Can't believe I'm even saying it, but I am. Than the white tights, white on white on white. But it's still, they finally make it back to the playoffs, and they're wearing alternates and screwing around. I'm not a Lions fan, but it annoyed me.
Yeah, and it begs the question of, you have that white on white look. Wouldn't be the appropriate time to wear those white pants or tights with these? You wear the blue jersey on the white.
Yeah.
If you're not going to have a silver, if you're not going to have a gray, and we already know you're using those constantly throughout the year, no, blue on blue.
Yeah. Coming back into the playoffs wearing color rush essentially, and all the blue pants have going for them is they have the stripe on the side, but other than that, it was not a good return to the playoffs to the Lions, and can only imagine it's going to get worse as they have their new uniforms coming out this coming year.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to, as much as we like talking about uniforms, I'm very excited to talk about stadiums too coming up. That's what we're planning on doing, is talking more about stadiums in a stadium review. Well, that first round, when you have a game in Dallas, in the NFC, you had a game in Dallas, which for me is a difficult watch, and then you have a game at Ford Field, which is even a more difficult watch than Dallas. That's not good.
Yeah.
And I did not enjoy these games in Detroit. I didn't enjoy Ford Field. It's one of the worst stadiums in football. And then on top of that, you have these color on color, blue on blues as a home team after all these years waiting to host a game, and this is what you do, and you do it twice.
Yeah. Super dark Dallas and super dark Detroit. It was ugly, and
right, it's like we get it Thanksgiving every year, right?
yeah.
That combination, and for so many years that was the only 2 games we'd get, and you knew it would be in Detroit and then it would be in Dallas, so you get those 2 indoor football games, and then we got in the first round of playoffs again.
Yep, and you just got to thank the Buccaneers for dressing well and dressing right, because they can get overlooked, but they really saved this second round game from being totally bad looking.
And we're not done with the Lions, because the Lions did advance to the conference championship game, the conference title game against the 49ers. What can you say about this group here?
They finally get into the championship game. Historical progress.
Which I know, without looking up, they had not been to the championship game since '91 against the Redskins.
And that was an amazing uniform matchup. And this was very good on one side, one of the best in the 49ers, and then flat out embarrassing on the other side. All white types, and all you can do is try not to look below the waist when you see the Lions on the screen, because
right. I mean, I couldn't have a picture any closer than this, or you would need a required sign-in to watch this episode because of the level of exposure here that we're talking about. I know I'm somewhat joking, but seriously, it's getting worse.
Yeah.
With all of this. And I would not want to join that huddle. Leave me out of that Lions all-white huddle. And here's the one of Jared Goff, and the only thing that's okay about this, well, the helmet still remains good. Let's say that. The helmet is still a strong helmet. It could be better. It hasn't been the best version of the helmet, but it's still a strong helmet. And then it just gets worse from there. The jersey is below average, and then you have the white tights. And then you have to consider the opponent you're playing, which makes you look all that much worse.
Yeah. Like I said before, it's lazy, it's cheap, and it doesn't match either or complement either of the other elements in the jersey or the helmet. When they have the silver pants or the blue pants in their closet, and all they have to do is pull them out and wear them.
Right. And when you say cheap, that is true because of how terrible, rippable those stockings are.
Yeah.
Or you want to call it like a run that you get in it, which is nothing that should come into play when you're playing football.
Right.
It's not, and this is still unacceptable. I don't want to get used to it, and we're going to continue as often as we need to criticize this. Let's just hope that there will be something better for the Lions, but there is not much reason to have hope based on the trends of the NFL right now.
Right.
And on a side note here, I have to criticize a lot of these teams and the photos they provide. Some of these photos are provided from, they're just out there, you get them. A lot of these are provided by the team sites. The quality is poor for the NFL. The lighting's bad, it's somewhat unprofessional looking, and that I want to talk about cheap, it's cheap. I'm thankful on one hand they make what they do available, but come on, this is the NFL, this is 2023, 2024. A little better picture quality. And we're going in reverse order now because we're talking about something positive. Since we were talking about the Lions there, now we're actually going back to the divisional round with the 49ers and the Packers. But one more note on the Lions and the 49ers. Again, Lions, you had those blue pants at home. Why couldn't you, as you said, you used them the first 2 weeks. This was the most appropriate time to use them.
Yeah.
And you did not wear them.
Superstition, you thought maybe they would give it a try, but they've worn these white tights in a lot of big games and have had success. you would hope that, being such a crushing loss as it was for them, that they maybe would reconsider with their new uniform set not to keep wearing them.
Okay, so we're looking at the 49ers and Packers divisional round here, and this was the other phenomenal, outstanding rivalry playoff game. We had the Cowboys and Packers, who at that point tied the number of playoff games between the 49ers and Packers. Well, this was a record. The 49ers and Packers played each other for a record 10 times in the playoffs. And every single time, it's great.
Yep.
For me, this is the best matchup of the two you get, is the 49ers at home against the Packers road.
I agree.
And I have to point out, too, when we do this, that, folks, if you ever need to know what the difference between the color yellow and gold is, here it is.
Yeah.
That's gold for the 49ers, and that's yellow for the Packers.
Yeah.
It was primarily a night game. There was some rain, but they looked great, and it almost happens when, as a 49ers fan, it's the exception when you don't face the Packers in the playoffs.
Yeah.
In 2022, when you look back, you're like, wow, really, the 49ers didn't play the Packers?
Yeah.
Because you have usually these other rivalries that are more spread out how many times they've played, but they played the record number of times. It's only from 95 through 2023.
Right.
How they just keep facing each other and keep facing each other. But from a uniform standpoint, this too is up there among, the top 5, top 3 just one-on-one uniform matchups you could have in any game. Would you like to say something about Aaron Banks?
Oh yeah, it's the first thing my eye goes to, unfortunately, when I see this picture. But once again, Aaron Banks decided to wear these half white transparent stockings with the bare mid-leg showing. Terrible look, and unfortunately this would not be the last time we saw it this year.
And I'm sorry to tell you, this is not the last time you're going to see that in this episode either.
Right, I'm sure.
They're moving over to the AFC, where we had the Ravens as the top seed. And I'm not talking about the first game they played against the Texans, but rather we're going to look at the AFC Championship game. This was a game we were anticipating for a while. And from the uniform standpoint, it was still good, but it was not what I had hoped to have seen.
Yeah, they wore the black pants, the Ravens, in the first playoff game against the Texans, and just guessing, it seemed like they did that because they had the victory over the Texans in the playoffs. Wearing the black pants in the past, was thinking that they're probably going to go back to the white pants after that week, but no, they decided to, I guess, get superstitious and keep the black pants rolling, and it did not work out for them.
Yeah, that's one they can forget about and leave in the past, is the black pants. I mean, does it go with the helmet? Sure, but if you're wearing white pants with what should be black socks, that is the better combination here.
Yeah.
I mean, black pants, as we pointed out before, there are reasons why teams don't wear black pants.
Yeah.
Think of the traditional teams that are black. The Steelers don't do it, and the Raiders don't do it.
Yeah.
And they're among the best uniforms in football. They always have, and they will always be unless they lose it and change their uniforms. They decided to go the Steelers with yellow and the Raiders with silver because black pants, it's just a bad look.
Yeah, especially when you don't have a stripe on the side.
Yes. I would be more willing to accept this if, again, you had a stripe, and I don't know why it's so hard for teams. to put a stripe because that stripe makes it that uncomfortable for the players.
Apparently, but then they wear a different colored pair of pants with a stripe on a different week, and it just makes no sense.
Think about the Lions, the
Yeah.
team we were just talking about. They had stripes on the blues, and then they got nothing on the white.
Yeah. But the Ravens, the Saints, the Lions are great examples of teams that wear a solid color pant without any stripe and the same socks, and it just looks like a one-piece, skin-tight, bodysuit type thing. Not a football uniform.
I like the Chiefs, though. I really enjoy the Chiefs road uniforms when they wear the red pants.
Yeah.
One thing I would actually like to, in another episode, talk about what they can do to improve their socks. I think as much as I like their uniforms, their socks can be better both home and road.
Agreed.
Now the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 58. It was a rough one as 49er fans. It was really rough, and I even admit up front that I picked the Chiefs to win. I had to pick the Chiefs to win. They did win, and the 49ers did not put themselves, from a uniform standpoint, in a position to win.
No, this is what I feared would happen, and it did. This was going to be the Super Bowl of white stockings for the 49ers because that's the trend that they've been going for in recent years in big games on the road and playoff games on the road. Last year in Philadelphia being the biggest example before the Super Bowl here, and they did it again. And I was hoping maybe at least Brock Purdy wouldn't do it because in the final road game of the season in Washington, he didn't, and he was like one of the only players that didn't. But no, pretty much everybody did except for a few people: Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings,
Fred Warner.
I
lean on Fred Warner heavily when it comes to watching the 49ers on the road because he has the red socks and he wears them. He does wear them right. Great player, but knows how to wear the uniform on top of it. When you're looking at the 49ers, because these teams are so superstitious, it's like, well, what else could they have done differently? Well, what we didn't do was have almost the entire team in Super Bowl 54 wear the white socks.
Right.
And, this time around, that's what they decided to do because they couldn't wear, and I assume the league would not allow them to wear, because if they could have, they would have worn the white-on-white turnbacks.
Right.
94s.
That's what they asked to do in 2019. They were denied, and I guess they didn't have that option then and not now either. But this is what we got, the closest thing to it.
Yeah, in this picture, though, it's all bad. Brock Purdy's got wrong. Christian McCaffrey's on the ground. He's got wrong. And then there's Aaron Banks again.
Yep.
And then Chris Jones needs to attend a uniform sock symposium. He does. He's a great player, but unlike bringing up players like Mike Parsons and Fred Warner, he gets the socks wrong every single time. And here's a good look at Mahomes and the Chiefs, for the most part, wearing the socks as you should. And 49ers, this was not the solution. This did not help.
No.
At least if you're going to lose the game, you could look your best. And you didn't. And if the 49ers wear the uniform right with the Red Sox, I say they have the better uniform between them and the Chiefs, but not. The Chiefs were the better suited up team.
Definitely.
This time around because, they wore the uniform as they're supposed to, and the 49ers didn't.
Yeah, the one game I can think of during the regular season was the game at Jacksonville where almost every single 49er did wear the Red Sox on the road, and that would have been nice to see in the Super Bowl.
Right, and the 49ers are like the Bengals, and I kept saying to myself going to this game, you don't want to be the Bengals. You don't want to be the team that loses to the same team 2 times as the Bengals lost the 49ers 2 times in 81 and 88. And that's exactly what happened, but even worse because it was, minus the socks. Without counting the socks, it was the same uniform matchup 2 times. And these were just, if you thought Super Bowl 54 was bad, this one was worse because, of course, it came after. So it was a second time, but then the overtime loss on top of it, and you still had the lead, this was worse.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gone on to say this is the worst loss in 49ers history, team franchise history. And there's one more group picture of the 49ers, and again, it was so disappointing, and sorry that Aaron Banks slipped in there one more time, as he actually ends up being really the star of this episode. I think he's in there 3 times.
Yeah, we're just appreciating Juwan Jennings and I believe Brandon Ayuk back.
Yeah,
Kyle
Juszczyk. Right, Juszczyk went with all reds in this one. And, if you have to say, well, pick your uniform poison, all white or all red, I'm going all red, not all white.
Yeah.
If I had to pick the lesser of 2 uniform evils.
Yeah, all red without any white separation versus all white without any red separation.
That's why you should have balance with all of this. But we have, of course, other issues in other sports that we're going to come to. And I had to put this in here because we featured this cheerleader with the Panthers last time. No surprise, her name is Allison, and she was selected or elected to the Pro Bowl. Because every single team gets one Pro Bowl cheerleader, and we both thought it was a no-brainer that she would have been selected. And I don't know what goes into it, but they got it right. Very different here, the two, because this is early in the season and this is late in the season. For some of these teams, if you are elected to the Pro Bowl, then you get to wear this banner for some part of the game.
We're commenting last time on the Panthers cheerleader uniforms being overlooked and appreciating the design and the different color elements all complementing each other. Good to see that they chose one of the best cheerleaders on the team to represent the team in the Pro Bowl.
And interestingly enough, this is actually gives you a feel here in the Pro Bowl. There is nothing to talk about for the Pro Bowl since they don't wear uniforms. They do send, as we said, cheerleaders off, and here's some of them, and you can see how they have changed over the years. For the most part, it was what we say, the traditional boot look, which I like and think it makes the most sense. And you actually see these cheerleaders lined up, and you see, okay, here are the more professional looks, and here are the more amateur looks, and here are the more trendy looks. I mean, it's just like uniforms, the team uniforms. What has lasted has, been tested, and it works. And why change it? Because you pointed that out, with some of them last time, and just to me, the boots are always the best look.
Yeah, and I was wondering, we did watch a little of the Pro Bowl just to see what was going on, but I was wondering if they had a photo that had all representative cheerleaders in it, so you could make a comparison all in one place of the different designs. And it is very interesting to see, for comparison, the different boots or shoes the different pom-poms and just the different styles of tops and skirts.
Yeah, if I was the Lions cheerleader, I would not want to be next to the Cowboys.
Yeah.
That is one of the probably I don't have them all lined up here. That Lions one is one of, to me, just eyeing it from here, I would assume one of the worst. And one of the newer ones, and then you're put next to the Cowboys. And this one, since we've talked about it, 49ers next to the Cowboys. There's your difference.
Yeah, the Cowboys really hasn't changed much. The 49ers has changed a lot, and definitely don't want to be next to Cowboys cheerleaders.
And again, I'm saying more than anything, it's the top's one thing, but the boots versus, again, trendy shoes. I just don't, again, to me, there's no comparison. What has always worked, what will always look good, looks good, versus the trendy look. And I'm always complaining as a 49ers fan that the 49ers should stick to everything, whether it's the field, they should stick with the same traditional field. Whether it's the helmet, they should get rid of the black. And the third thing I always think of is give the cheerleaders the boots back. I think it's a lost cause, but it's probably the last time I'm going to mention it. Now we're moving on to the NBA. And then we're going to be doing a lot more NBA. And we actually are finishing for the NFL season. So these are some carryover city edition uniforms from last year that I wanted to criticize that we just didn't get around to. And the expressions here of Ayton and Curry perfectly, it says it all. It sums it all up of how I feel about city edition uniforms. I think they're terrible across the board.
Yeah, they don't add anything except more sales to the team's revenue from our perspective. None of them are equal or superior to their primary uniforms or their retro uniforms, if they have them. And the ones that have been in the decent good range are usually ones that have taken design pieces from their retros from the past and put them into a city edition, but nothing that's new or unique has been better.
Yeah, they're just really weak. I mean, the Suns just, I talk about the Suns almost every episode. You know, when we're not in the thick of the NFL season, I complain about the Suns, and it does burn me up. It does. Because you have one of the best uniforms, period, and then they found all these different alternates to wear, and then they messed up their new uniforms, and then they have all these bad city edition uniforms. But this one, to me, in some ways, took the cake because it's nothing. And I know that's the idea is if you're going to have a city edition, which I'm against anyway, but if you're going to have a city edition, it shouldn't be the exact same thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be the exact same color scheme of what you have. But this is just nothing. It doesn't say Suns to me at all.
Yeah.
And then the Warriors here, I've had enough of the black. Just cool it with the black. Black, 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 black. You know, can we just have more white? Can we have more blue? Can we just have yellow?
Yeah, yellow.
I mean, they haven't done like a real yellow uniform now in a long time.
Yeah.
They don't do it. And here we have one I've wanted to get to is what we call the Cal Warriors uniforms. So that's the Cal uniform there on the left, and here are the Warriors. I mean, if you want to talk about copying something and going with the same idea, the only difference was here in this particular comparison is the necks, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to think it's the same, really just about the same font. That's what they're going for. But if you're the Warriors, why are you copying a college team?
Yeah.
When I'm sitting there crying out again saying, you have all these great traditional throwback uniforms where it could be the gold, or again, let me say this, yellow. I know they're the Golden State Warriors, but it's yellow.
Yeah.
You can do the yellow uniforms from the past. You can do great 80s, 90s uniforms, especially blue. You can do what's called the We Believe Warriors that they made the Oakland uniform. We need to review that one sometime.
Yeah.
You have all those options, and for the most part, they're all quite good. And then you have this. I mean, there's much worse. At least it's not black, but it's not the Warriors.
Yeah.
That's my complaint. And there is something very wrong about seeing Curry and Paul together.
Yeah.
It's just not okay. Those two guys should not be on the same team. They're opponents, they're rivals, and it just doesn't sit well with me seeing them as teammates. And here's another one for the Warriors, is the Warriors have a lot of uniforms. They're still, a team that's in the spotlight often, and why do you need yet another? And it has to be, here's your black uniform.
Yeah.
This doesn't do anything for me. I don't know if it does anything for you.
No, the crooked lettering is really annoying visually, and I know they're trying to be clever and pay tribute to San Francisco's hilly streets, but it's just really annoying visually. And as we've said with the NBA uniforms, having the name below the number is horrible looking.
Never has to be done again. It's been tried. It doesn't work. Stop it.
Yeah.
One thing we didn't get to talk about actually when we reviewed all the Warriors uniforms, it's a small little gripe, but the numbers on the back of the uniform have become too thin.
Yeah.
They need to be a thicker, wider. The numbers just need to be thicker again.
Yeah, especially in the
bolder.
case of Klay Thompson's number 11. The ones are so thin and they're so close together, it almost looks like a Roman numeral 2.
So these are another one that can go. Doesn't need to return after the season. I'd be happy if they didn't wear them again. Then there's the Lakers. City Connect, or City Edition. And, City Connect and City Edition both bother me so much. Because I'm not looking forward to the next group of, and it's coming, and I don't know if we're going to be able to get through all of them. I don't know if I can do that again this year, to be honest. But I know there's a good chunk of the teams in MLB who are going to do the City Connects. And I always admit I call City Connects City Editions and vice versa all the time. But these Lakers City Edition uniforms, just shaking my head. These are the Lakers. And it has to be black.
Right.
When you don't wear a purple uniform anymore. Well, you ditched the traditional purple.
Yeah.
But you don't do purple right anymore. At least you could do something better in purple. And then you have to pull out a black uniform. What do you have to say about this?
Yeah, again, just more black. But just most of all, the Los Angeles and the pointy form is just horrendous on the eyes.
My word is going to be atrocious.
Yeah. And I don't know, it would be better probably just to put LA as small and simplistic as that would be, than having this unbalanced, pointy Los Angeles that doesn't even have an even amount of letters on each side.
Yeah, we make many comparisons between the Lakers and the Cowboys. But with all the attention they get, and they are such historically significant teams, not always because of the present, but because of the past, of course we're going to give them a little more coverage. I will say, at least when we're talking about the Lakers, that, well, they've won recently. Yeah, it was the bubble, but then they have arguably the greatest player that's ever played the game in LeBron James. The Cowboys, for the most part, get it right with the uniforms, and for the most part in the NBA, the Lakers get it right. We have more complaints than we're not going to get into today about the Lakers. What was sad about the NBA is, because there's so many uniforms, it seems that every team has at least one stinker.
Yeah.
And for the Lakers, this is definitely it. And they need a redesign. And what I would like to see the NBA do is, instead of giving us a city edition uniform that, again, it doesn't do anything for me, could we just select or alternate between a classic throwback, retro, turnback uniform?
Yeah.
Could we just rotate some of those instead of all these designs that just don't work? At least they're historical.
Yeah, and I can't think of a team that doesn't have at least one.
Right, with how much teams change.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that happen. Unfortunately, we're not done with these, because the Lakers and Celtics played each other again. We did the review in the last episode of the Christmas Day matchup between the Lakers and the Celtics, where the Celtics wore their, well, let me start with the Lakers. The Lakers wore their white. And we said how we feel about the Lakers white. I'm not going to repeat all of it, but it's a very good white uniform, but it's not the traditional uniform.
Yeah. And
when it's Lakers and Celtics, you should have the two traditional uniforms out there. You should have, well, I'm probably going to repeat myself anyway, because I feel it needs to be said. When the Lakers are in Los Angeles home, yellow home, Celtics road green, and then when it's in Boston, it's white Celtics home, and then it's Lakers purple road.
Right.
That's what we should have. Or if the Lakers, the Lakers could just have one uniform. Yeah. I would love to see the purple come back. The purple should come back. But if there was one team that could just get away with having one uniform, it's the Lakers.
Yeah.
With their yellow.
Yeah.
And what we complained about at Christmas with the Lakers wearing white at home and then the Celtics wearing green, that they only faced each other twice in the regular season, and recently they find a way to mess it up. They don't wear their traditional uniforms. They go out of their way not to, because of what they faced each other too many times over the years.
Yeah.
It's predictable.
Guess
but
so.
They're both, again, if we were just ranking the individual uniforms, we put Lakers 1, Celtics 2 when we reviewed all the uniforms.
Yeah.
And I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, it's one of those
Every time.
matchups you look for on the NBA calendar, and you look forward to seeing it and hope that they'll get it right, but they don't anymore.
Every time I want to see those traditional uniform matchups that we stated and talked about already, that should be and remain unchanged. They messed it up at Christmas, and you and I talked about then that they were going to most likely mess it up again.
Yeah.
But they found a way to mess it up again, both times. And I have to criticize at Christmas, we criticized the Celtics for wearing red headbands and red sleeves. I could have, I suppose, looked past that if, the Lakers wore their yellow. I don't like it. But this one's worse, because we said at least, the Lakers white isn't traditional, but it is a great uniform. The Celtics get it right here. And really, they're the ones, for the most part, that did their part.
Yeah, especially at home.
And they're wearing their home whites, and then the Lakers wear the city.
Yeah, like you said, even if they had worn yellow, which would not be historically accurate, it would have been way better than this.
This is another one I would be happy if I never saw it again.
Yeah.
Okay, now for something good in the NBA. The Timberwolves brought back their past uniform here. And although it's not an elite uniform, the Timberwolves have tried all these different uniforms for however many years it's been, and they've gotten them wrong. And I would be happy to see them go back to this very solid, in some ways simple, but respectable jersey.
Yeah. Really nice. Piping on all the borders of the jersey and the shorts. And you have the round neck, and you have a font that has a little character to it, but it's still classy. And the number font is also very classy and readable.
Yeah,
and they wear these at home.
They could definitely bring them back, and that's a good thing about the Timberwolves being a much better team this year, is the opportunity to see these more in big games.
Yeah.
Not that you're going to see them in the playoffs, but we can enjoy them while we see them.
Yeah.
Shaq. Everybody likes Shaq. I can't think of anyone I've ever heard who doesn't like Shaq. He appeals to everybody. He's everywhere, but Shaq has a way of being likable, and he was one of the greatest centers who ever played. He wasn't an overhyped player. He was one of the best ever. And he had his number retired. And you know what's interesting is he's had his number retired now, if I have this correct, with 3 teams. The Lakers, the Heat, and his first team now, the Orlando Magic.
Yeah, you think this one would have been sooner than this point in history, but no, it took them longer. But the big issue here is the banner has the current Magic uniform template, not what Shaq wore, as if we're not going to be able to recognize what it is if it isn't in the current uniform template. And they have the correct uniform mounted in glass right next to Shaq as he's speaking, and the banner's wrong. Just really disappointing and confusing why they chose to do that.
And, you know, we honestly on this show, we nitpick a lot of things. You know, a lot of people don't care about uniforms very much. This is not one of those things. I mean, how do you mess this up in front of this great crowd, and when it's Shaquille O'Neal and you have it right there and it's not even close?
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers are black.
Yeah.
Right? And they are blue here, and it's different. I mean, all it has in common is that it is a home uniform. But this is not the uniform Shaq ever wore with the Orlando Magic. And what they should do is they should correct it.
Yeah.
They messed it up for the jersey retirement. But this is something the organization should fix. This is something the franchise should fix.
Yeah, I was saying earlier this week they can take this banner and turn it into a sail for a boat or something if they want to, but they need to get a new one made and get this right so that Shaq is remembered more correctly here.
Yeah, again, it's Shaq.
Yeah.
And we're going to finish with the NBA All-Star Game. We someday need to do an episode on All-Star Games in MLB, which is the biggest deal. I mean, it is the show. The MLB All-Star Game, the Pro Bowl, and the NBA All-Star Game. I'm thankful I didn't watch this All-Star Game. Didn't watch a minute of it because, what was it? It was a tights fest.
Yeah, you saw more of the pictures and reports than I did, but apparently pretty much no one was found without tights. And they were...
Very few were without tights.
Yeah.
But the majority were wearing tights. And we're not just talking about, again, and I don't need to zoom in any closer here. We're not just talking about the type that cut off. I mean, we're talking about all the way.
Yeah.
All the way here with these from, top to bottom. And I was reading an article about why NBA players wear these tights. And there are some obvious reasons, but in this particular article, the author stated that they look good. That's why they wear them. They look good on women. They don't look good on basketball players.
And especially when you have bare arms on the top and you have covered legs. It's just unbalanced looking. When they're white, they don't match the team colors. And it's just amazing that these players aren't wearing the t-shirts or the compression tops.
Right. If your legs matter that much, why don't you take care of your arms too,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But NBA uniforms, ever since these accessory leggings and tops and shirts that come along, just look so messy compared to what they used to look.
Yeah, this tights thing in the NFL has gotten way out of hand, but the way it's taken over the NBA, where you have the majority of the players doing this, it's happened quickly, and you do see very few players. Like when I'm watching games, you see 10 players on the court, and you're saying, well, sometimes maybe it's only one, two, maybe one of the players out of the 10 that's not wearing this.
Yeah.
And I just can't get over the fact that, if this was the 90s, forget about just the 90s. If this was 10 years ago, people would laugh at you.
Yeah.
If you were playing basketball as a guy and you're going out there dressed like this, you would get laughed off the court. And I know I'm not ignoring the fact that there are reasons why these are worn. But it's terrible. It's a terrible look because what we're concerned about here is how things appear.
Yeah, and at a certain point, you might as well just wear pants.
Right.
In the NBA.
I mean, you can just do away with the shorts and why don't you just do what the NFL does?
Yeah.
And as we finish up here, of course, too, notice where the names are on the back of the jerseys.
Below the numbers, because it would be too boring to be above the number for something alternative like the All-Star Game.
So that's a wrap for episode 18. We will plan to continue on with NBA next time. We'll get into some Major League Baseball, and we have some new uniforms to review.